what in your mind do you think this, like, I think many neighborhoods will exist, not necessarily, like, won't have the same motivations as, say, apps or platforms. Like an Airbnb exists today because it's a for-profit entity, and it hopes to make a certain stream of revenue through engagements of its users. A neighborhood would have different objectives. Some neighborhoods might exist, someone might create a neighborhood to generate monetary revenue from its members. In other cases, it might have purely social purposes. And by social, I mean, like, I might be part of a neighborhood just because I like my stream of memes to come from these 500 people that I think are hilarious. And in those groups of 500 or 50,000 people sharing memes, there may not be like streamlined objectives of engagement and, eyeball grabbing. And I wonder what you think as an algorithm designer. Is that motivation enough to drive an engagement, to drive a neighborhood, to drive engagement with the neighborhoods? Is it or do we need that monetary incentive to grab people and keep them engaged? And I wonder what you think about that.
Well, I'm not sure I follow the question exactly. Like, do you need monetary incentives to keep people?
Yeah, like I sometimes, like, I might be part of a group of 50,000 meme sharers who just doing it because it's hilarious.
Yeah.
But the founders of this neighborhood may not be answerable to shareholders, may not be generating like massive sums of money from this. And I wonder, in that case, will we be able to create algorithms that engage people? And
right.
And a fork down the road is, well, what would there be a difference in the algorithms? Would that be an interesting difference? Is what I think about.
Well, I guess you'd want to move away from this paradigm of the attention economy that we're currently in, for sure. Like, it's not good for anyone, and it's not good for people, because big corporations have an incentive to change what you believe in order to sell your stuff, and you end up with kind of optimizing for outrage and all of these things, which this kind of humane tech movement has laid out very well. But at the same time, I guess
it works, right? Like, it is that low-hanging fruit which drives and oils the machine, and it works.
It works, and I do feel engaged in the moment.
Yeah.
But not in the longer term, and that's kind of where this miscapture problem comes in, where you only capture impulses and engagement, but you don't actually capture what is truly valuable for these people.
Yeah.
And I guess a good thing about something like Neighborhoods is that you have a lot more exploration surface for appeasing to different types of values. So you could have one neighborhood community which is all about funs and giggles, and that would be great. And it wouldn't be bundled up in the same context that you have your work friends who share things about Web3, or I don't know. With the current way platforms work, is you're kind of enforced to use a certain format to express yourself. And I guess it would be great if there was a lot of different types of cultures and ways of expressing yourself. So you don't have to kind of comply to this format, because it does end up driving a certain culture. And I think that's also interesting with Neighborhood, that you don't enforce everyone to do to follow a certain way of expressing yourself, and thereby a certain culture. Like the tweet format itself, that you can only express yourself in 240 characters, drives a certain culture. And the same thing goes is for Facebook. There are some limits in how you can do that, and I think that's super cool. But it might be a bit of a tangent.
I guess what I'm curious about is, as a generation, and I feel like I'm older than most people here. I don't think we've genuinely experienced algorithms that aren't out to monetize us, or our experience of the internet over the last decade.
I don't think that's quite true.
Has been, we've been engaged. Okay, let me frame it this way: we've been meaningfully engaged because TikTok has shown me a video that grabs my eye, sets a tune in my ear, and I'm thinking about it and like really gripped by it. will neighborhoods algorithms, or what, like, I don't even want to frame it as will neighborhoods algorithms keep people engaged. I think, will people be able to orchestrate themselves enough and use like, what would an algorithm that's born in neighborhoods, like, what would be different about it if it's
What will
not
be different about it?
motivated? Yeah, and so the question is, what is
Mm.
that difference? And
Right. All right.
and so I'm
I can
curious about that. Yeah, and so open to your
I can try
thoughts.
to get an answer to that. I think first and foremost, I don't think it's easy to just kind of look at what's happening in the social space and end up with a conclusion that personalization is horrible. Like
Yeah.
these kind of personalizing or recommendation systems are horrible. They ended up with all of these externalities, and therefore we shouldn't have them at all.
Mm.
I think that's like throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Mm.
I do think like personalization is great, and a world with no personalization would be super flat and mediocre.
Mm.
And if you go to YouTube and just like go there in a private tab and check the explore section, it's just shit because it doesn't know anything about you yet. And with that said, I don't think we should optimize for engagement as we currently are. And the reasons we're doing that is because of this monetization and data silo problem. And neighborhoods wouldn't have that.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have this problem. And if a neighborhood is using one algorithm that just doesn't appease you in the long term, you can just hop out. Whereas with Twitter and Facebook, you're kind of locked in. Like if you want to engage in these conversations, you're locked into the platforms. You have to just swallow their algorithm.
Yeah.
Whereas that wouldn't be the problem in neighborhoods as much. And I think there are, and I think I'm excited for the possibility of having lots of different algorithms that people can play with and like plug and play in a neighborhoods environment.
Almost like these
Where in
libraries or templates that people can then play with and plug, almost like apply
yeah,
skills.
exactly.
Yeah.
I think it would be super cool if someone had like a meme page where there was some sort of algorithm that optimized for laughter, and then in another place there was some sort of algorithm that tried to highlight thoughtful discussions, and you can kind of choose which context you wanted to go into. So I don't think you want to get away from personalization entirely. But I do think you want to experiment a lot more. I do think you want to get away from this paradigm of the goal of algorithms being to keep people hooked and their eyeballs glued to you.